for a while, and when we reconnected after a number of years, all of a sudden he's a journalist and he's in the Middle East covering all this stuff. I'm like, dude, this is amazing. I'm so proud of you. Good on you. And then I find out that he's been arrested in Egypt, and I couldn't believe it. This guy, who was just this kid I used to know, who was in one of my films, now he's this veteran journalist in the middle of all this stuff. I just couldn't believe it. Austin Mackell isn't a criminal. He is not a criminal. He is not a terrorist. He's not an extremist, anything like that. What they're doing is basically, I think Patty pointed this out before, is that they're just trying to intimidate journalists, anybody there who speaks out about the government, because unfortunately Austin's working in a part of the world where the authorities don't like the idea of people speaking out or expressing themselves. They don't like this. They don't want people thinking for themselves. And Austin's over there, you know, trying to get the truth out, and that's all he's doing, is that he's just reporting the truth, and these charges are completely bogus. And the Australian government has done bupkis about this. I had my last communique with Austin. I said to him, I go, what, has anything happened? Are they doing anything? And he said, the ambassador's had a few meetings. Sorry, that doesn't sound like a lot of action to me. I think some Americans got detained over there, and Senator John McCain flew over and took care of it and got them out. Now, granted, America's got a lot more pull over Egypt than we do. But, you know, I see Julia Gillard, you know, she addressed Congress last year. Or was it? Yeah, it was last year. And she was going on about how great democracy is, and it's so important, you know, freedom of the press and all these type of things, you know, in that horrible voice of hers. She makes Fran Drescher sound like Beyonce Knowles. And what I'm going to say to her, I go, if you really appreciate this stuff, you've got an Aussie over here who's in trouble, you know, are you going to talk the talk or are you going to walk the walk? Put your money where your mouth is. We've got an Australian citizen who's in trouble over here, who's facing 5 to 7 years in prison in Egypt. Did anyone see Midnight Express? We don't want this happening. That was Turkey. I can only imagine Egypt's even worse, but this is really, really bad. We need somebody to get over there, whether it's Bob Carr or somebody else, to go over there and just get him out, okay? And use the press. And say, if you don't let him out, this is going to be really, really bad for you. He hasn't done anything. Now, if we just get him out of the country, the Egyptian people will be happy. Well, the authorities will be happy, and we'll be happy. He's gone. So please, what I'm going to ask is that these politicians, you know, our politicians who talk about democracy and freedom and how great it is, put your money where your mouth is and do something about it, okay? Because this is really, really appalling. We've got an Australian citizen and his colleagues, not forget his colleagues. I don't know his colleagues, I only know Austin. But I'm here to support my mate. I love him very much. He's just a great guy. And I've never come to rallies hardly about like anything, but when my friend's in trouble, you know, I got to show up. Now, I'm not part of any movement or any group. I don't have any political agenda or anything. I'm just here to speak up for my friend, and I hope the hell he gets out of there. So please, somebody go over there and get him out, because this is absolutely ridiculous. And ask the government, get off your asses and do something about it, please.
Thanks to all the speakers. My name is Patrick Harrison. I'm a political activist here in Australia and a reporter with Green Left Weekly, which is a left-wing publication that's published a lot of Austin's work. I actually met Austin, unlike a lot of the people here, for the first time September 10 in Cairo. It was just after the protests where the Israeli embassy was stormed. That was after a big protest in Tahrir Square, and he informed me that he had absolutely nothing to do with it, but I kind of didn't believe him at the time, because we all know, or those of us who know Austin know, that he's certainly committed not only to telling the truth of these stories, but to showing his personal solidarity to the struggles going on there as well. And he's a very courageous man, and we can't just leave him to rot in jail. When I met Austin, I was new to Cairo in the Middle East, and he really helped me to get grounded and get a real understanding of the situation, what was going on, the actual balance of forces and the actual struggles taking place in Egyptian society today, which is certainly not something you get out of the mainstream coverage, which talks as though the Arab Spring is over, Mubarak is gone, and now everyone just needs to shut up and get on with their lives. Austin is committed to telling the real truth. And that's one of the reasons why his work is so dangerous to the regime there. his work gets to the heart of what's actually going on, and he's interviewed a lot of amazing people in Egypt, political activists, military officers who've defected from the regime and have come down to Tahrir and spoken out. He interviewed the Salafists and other religious figures who are also part of that movement in controversial ways, I suppose. That wasn't a particularly friendly interview, but nonetheless he is committed to telling these stories and really expressing what's actually going on, taking place on the ground. After I met Austin, I travelled to Palestine, and while I was there, he had a very exciting incident where he was down in Tahrir when the protest wave broke out in November, where there was many deaths again, and just before the elections took place. And Fox News gave him a call. Someone had lined up this interview for him where they wanted an on-the-ground Western reporter in Tahrir, and they didn't have anyone over there yet because most of their reporters had packed up and gone home after the first referendum, after Mubarak's downfall. And he was posting about it on Twitter in the minutes leading up to this. What am I going to do? Should I try and defend my journalistic career here? Should I think about my interests? No, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to drop a truth bomb on these people. And so he spoke for about 30 seconds about what was actually happening on the ground, and then he spoke for about a minute and a half about America's involvement, America's shameful support of that military regime, the fact that all the tear gas shells being shot at the protesters had made in the USA stamped on the side of them, the fact that America's interests in the region were connected to Egypt's geopolitical status and also to Israel, and America's unashamed support of Israel and dictatorships so long as they're friendly towards Israel. And I don't know if Fox News will be getting Austin back on again after this incident, but he was extremely proud of what he did, and I think we should all be proud of this kind of courageous work that Austin does. Austin told me that during his time reporting, as a Westerner who speaks Arabic with a Levantine accent, he was often, occasionally thought of as being an Israeli spy, as I was at one point. Most Westerners who go down to Tahrir have that moment with the young men who guard the entrances to the square, and he actually had two of his fingers broken and his camera bag stolen from him at one point. I don't know if everyone has heard this story, but he was unafraid of that, and he didn't let this fact that violence could evolve and there was people that were afraid and didn't know if they could trust him on the ground. He wouldn't let that stop him from telling this story and showing solidarity to this struggle. I think we all need to stand up for Austin, and we all need to make sure that our government stands up for Austin. Bob Carr, Kevin Rudd, Julia Gillard, and the whole Labor government has a responsibility to stand up for this man, to intervene, and to not allow him to suffer up to 7 years in jail. The charges are total fabrications. Austin is committed to telling the truth about the struggles going on in Egypt today, the ongoing revolutionary struggle to change Egyptian society and to get rid of the corrupt regime which still remains in place despite the fact that Hosni Mubarak is gone. And the talk about foreign hands, as Austin said to me after this incident, is not really about him. His work, despite the courageous work that he's done, is not really that big a threat to the regime. What is a threat to the regime is that ongoing movement. And this talk about foreign hands is nothing but a ploy to try and delegitimize the struggle taking place in Egyptian society, delegitimize the amazing activists like Mr. Al-Fayumi that Austin was trying to interview, and the others that Austin has stood alongside. So I think I'll leave it there, but I just want to say once again that it's time for our government to actually make their voice heard about this. It's absolutely shameful that nothing took place while Kevin Rudd was having his, as Austin put it, Rocky-like comeback shot at the Prime Minister. That the internal politicking of the Labor Party was more important to them than the freedom of an Australian citizen who's facing made-up charges, fraudulent charges in Egypt. And now that we have a new foreign minister, that this should be his first point of action, his first.
Thanks very much.
And I should have said at the start that the way that I met Austin was actually due to his commitment to the struggles that are happening here in Australia, and particularly the struggles around Indigenous rights. Austin contacted me when I was living in the Northern Territory saying he wanted to travel up there to make a documentary about the Northern Territory intervention, and I helped him out with that, and he ended up going to Dagaragu, which is a very historic community where they fought for many, many years to try and get their land and get their recognition. And I'd have to say I think it was very, very fitting that Austin actually ended up going from Dagaragu, one of the main sites of Indigenous struggle in Australian history, to Cairo, one of the most inspiring sites of struggle in the 21st century, that's happening now. So it's been great to know that. Is there anyone? Yeah, Liz's got some. Patty.
Just to say, as Lee Rhiannon said, that the Senate sits next week. It sits for 2 weeks, and then they're on a long break until May. So I think the week after next is our big opportunity to make sort of a second splash about Austin. There's a sign-up sheet here that one of Austin's friends, who's standing quietly at the back over there, has put together. He's going to coordinate a ring-in to Prime Minister Gillard's office and to the new Foreign Minister's office once he's appointed this week, in 2 weeks' time. So on the last 3 sitting days of this spring, we need people to give him your email addresses and phone numbers, mobile numbers. It will mean you only have to make 2 phone calls, but it would be, I think, really important for Gillard staff and Carr staff to hear from friends and family. All you have to do is speak from the heart and just tell them what you want them to do. So sign up to the mission.
Thanks so much. And I also just got asked to announce that there's a car leaving from here to go down to Port Botany. People might know the workers down there are on strike. The maritime workers are on strike against DP World, which is a major international shipping company, which has actually just been occupied in Egypt by the port workers in Egypt, fighting against DP World over there. It's a massive company. And the MUA have supported that struggle and are actually calling for the nationalisation of DP World in Egypt. So hopefully we can bring a bit of that spirit to Port Botany. So Mark's driving down there if anyone wants to head down to Port Botany. But is there anyone else here who might want to say a few words about Austin before we wrap up today? Or may take this? Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for coming. As Liz said. There's the contact list there, and stay tuned for ongoing action as well. I think if we don't get any movement from Bob Carr, we should be back here tenfold. The size of this on a weekday to all go in there and sit in and say, time for action, Carr. Drop the charges on Austin and his colleagues. Thank you.